Dhimant Nagraj. Please join me in welcoming Dhimant. So Dhimant is a senior principal engineer at Intel, and if I talk about the things that he's done, I can't even understand some of those things, but I'm going to do it anyway, right? So Dhimant, he's conceptualized the architecture and the product line for some of Intel's core processors, server family of processors in the networking, data storage, and hyperscale cloud areas. And that's completely architected and built and delivered to the market from India. Right? Very good. We heard Piyush Shah in the main panel a little while ago. So welcome Piyush. Piyush is Chief Product Officer at InMobi. And pretty phenomenal thing is InMobi was ranked recently by Fast Company in the list of world's most innovative companies in 2016. Ranked number 15 worldwide and number 1 in India. That's a phenomenal accomplishment. So we're really proud to have you here. As heard earlier, Piyush is also a very active mentor in the community, so feel free to take advantage of his presence here and connect with him. And I think we're still waiting for Shalini. Shalini Sankarshana she's held up in traffic. Can't imagine that. So she'll be here as soon as possible. So what I'm going to do is, I probably didn't do justice to your introductions. So what I'd like to ask you to do is really give us a little bit of background about your journey getting to where you are, and kind of set the stage a little bit, and then we'll get into the actual topic of this panel. Yeah, it's okay.
Hi. So you definitely did a very good introduction, but I'll probably go back, the last few years. Given the topic, I think I will focus on the product management arena itself. So when we, started off at ADP, it was like a very typical captive, right? And you start with a lot of the engineering functions, but not a lot on the, or I would say absolutely zero on the product management function. So my journey actually started off with, knocking on the door of our product management head whenever I visited US. And because it was very passionate, right? I mean, it was always about connecting to the customers, understanding what they're doing, and then being able to conceptualize and take it to the end. I mean, you could be a great engineer, but I think in every role, it's absolutely important that you understand the market and what the user requires, or just to give them a better way of doing things, right? Not give them what they're doing. So yeah, the journey was very interesting, going and meeting the product management head, and in ADP we pride ourselves on openness. It took me almost, 2 to 3 years to, every time I met him, I really picked up a new skill, whether it was design thinking, whether it was about the market, who are our competitors, and so on and so forth. Finally, the end of 3 years, I think, 3 times that I met him, he said, why don't you shift to the US? Right, I'll give you a product management role. And I was like, no, I'm not coming to the US, I want product management out here. So anyway, that journey continued, for another year. But today we have almost 100 people in product management. And I think that's a great accomplishment for the India organization. Today, of course, I'm probably a little too old to get into, doing or learning it the very, very hard way. But what we have accomplished, I think, today is we own the Workforce Now, which is the flagship product of ADP for the mid-market and small business market. We own the complete talent suite, right? There are other pieces like time off also that we own completely from India. And when I say completely from India, right from market research to support is what we do from here. Very interestingly, 1.5 years back, what we started doing is changing the game completely. Product management from India and engineering teams are in the US. Now, what it requires is definitely, I think, at every level to be deep into the works, right? So even if I'm not writing user stories, brainstorming, being part of the user story, writing, definitely understanding what does the future performance management, what will the future performance management look like? All of that, I think, needs people to get in and, get their hands dirty. So for us, I think that was success, actually giving direction to a US team to develop a market for US. So I'll stop out here, I think.
Great, thank you. That's awesome.
Okay, good morning, folks. Very happy to be here, and that was more than a generous introduction. Well, actually, I am a little bit a fish out of water here. I'm not a product manager. I'm an architect by vocation. So maybe I'll just give a sneak peek into my journey and what excites me about what I'm doing here. So I've only been at 2 companies. I started out after my master's in Purdue University at HP, and then decided to move back here, and now I'm with Intel, right? So if I just look back, I didn't quite start out as an architect. I started out as I have been in the microprocessor industry all through my career, but as you can imagine, it's a fairly wide and complex space, and it has its own silos of expertise. So I started out as a circuit designer. Coming out of grad school, I thought the world of circuit design. I thought I could spend a career out there. Was not to be. 1 year into that, I actually moved on to a lot of these transitions in the early part were not really out of my own choice, but what it allowed me is just the perspective about how complex products are built. I found myself in a place like HP, and especially in a sleepy town like Fort Collins of 100,000 people, where everybody in there was 20 years into doing what they're doing. I found myself, while it was a lot of passion around being in cutting edge, product development, there was very little scope to actually build something new, right? So I think looking back, some of those aspects around how I navigated have been instrumental in the way I work, right? So I did, for example, 1 year into the job, collate a bunch of folks and started, a research group. We didn't go very far, but just wanted to do something new. Got to work, like I said, on various aspects. And then 5-6 years into the journey, it just felt like, here I am working on a minuscule portion of this gigantic project. And then I often want to extricate myself and look at the bigger picture, and that's not quite happening at all, right? And so I started looking out for, how do I actually, give vent to my passion of looking at the bigger picture and providing some context as to, why I'm doing what I'm doing, and what is, how does this product actually make money, what are the challenges, and so on. So one opportunity I got, and many people advised me against taking that up, was to actually, being in HP, work out of Intel, right? And I think that was a key inflection point, the way I see it. I was advised not to take up that role because people said you're one out of five HP employees in an ocean of Intel employees, and you'd be out of sight, out of mind, right? And so that's where I said, this seems like it was a one-line job description that was by no means fancy, but it just felt like the stakes of what that role could provide, being a virtual 5-person team, referencing back into a broader organization and they relying on your insights was great, right? Mm-hmm. In some ways, I defined my role there. Having to, and this was a $3 billion business that HP was relying on a CPU from Intel. So being a virtual CPU team back into HP that was building the system was great. It taught me things around, influencing without authority, for example, right? Because I was fairly young in a team of very experienced engineers, had to effect some changes in a way that would make sense for HP. How do I go about influencing those changes, right? So that I thought was great, and the way it worked out really helped my career trajectory, right? And then I decided to move back. In Intel, it's been a very interesting journey. Intel was culturally very, very different from HP, right? HP prides itself on the HP way. You trust your employees, top to bottom. There's no structure. There are no meetings. Nothing, right? Intel is a lot more formal. It's a great place to work for anybody who wants to do technology because there's so much scope. But at the same time, few things around how do you navigate yourself in this ocean, right? There's a lot of good work happening, but how do you establish yourself, right? Mm-hmm. So and also I was working on something that was far broader in impact and scope than what I was used to doing before. So starting out there, and then being in a position where you're building products and executing to products that are already on the roadmap, to having a vision, partnering with some other folks with similar thought process to say, how do we make this trajectory a little more non-linear? How do we actually define our own charter where we look to solve business problems, not just execute to a product on the roadmap, and succeeding in there after failing multiple times, and learning from those missteps, I think has been a very rewarding journey.
Great, thanks, Dhiman. Before we get to Piyush, let me just welcome Shalini. Shalini, thank you so much. Great to have you here. No worries, you are right on time. And Shalini is Senior VP of Products at Broadridge, and she's been in the investment banking and financial sector for a number of years. I've been getting to know Shalini over the last couple of months as we've been talking a lot. And what's fascinating is the career journey that she's had. It's really moving up the ladder, starting from the role of a business analyst to being an executive, running a global product portfolio in a large organization. So we'd love to hear about that as well. So welcome once again. And
yeah,
Piyush.
Yeah. No, I'll make it quick. I'm guessing I shared that in the previous session. I'm a production engineer by background. I was not in college for 2 years. I was running my own .com venture way back in '99. Did that for 4 years. Failed miserably on all the 3 models we tried there, and from there realized how difficult is it to sort of start your own thing and sort of groom it and make it big and all of that. And then went to ISB because financially it was important to do my MBA and get back to the corporate job. So after ISB, went to Citi and Deutsche, spent some time in banking, but more importantly consumer payments and private banking. Realized it's not my cup of tea. Realized that place is not even maybe extracting 5% of what I think is my true potential. And do I want to be my boss's boss the way he is today? Answer is no. So might as well try and do something else. And then that's why I found out more about InMobi, joined these guys way back, and it's been like 6 years at InMobi, and have been very excited and privileged, I would say, to be part of the rocket ship that we have built out there. It's very difficult, very tough, not easy, and done like 2-3 stints at InMobi, all very 0 to 1 initiatives within InMobi that slowly became mainstream or failed within InMobi. So I've had the privilege of doing both, and it's been more lows than ups all the time, because it takes time to figure out that one gem that's going to work. So it's been exciting, and I'm very, very keen to sort of share my thoughts with you guys.
Great, thanks a lot. Thanks, Piyush. Shalini. So yeah.
Hi, this is Shalini Sankarshana.
And people around you, just teams to move along, your partners, your stakeholders, because when we talk about global products, we are really asking about $100 million investment, right? The stakes, if it works, may be huge, right? So the example that you talked about, we came up with a concept that, I'm happy to say today it is a multi-billion-dollar, product line, right? Yeah. But going in, our design cycles are 3 to 5 years, and we are going in asking for $100 million investment, right? And so it's not just about knowing that this is a technically sound proposal, right? It's not just about saying, hey, isn't it obvious to me? I'm actually plugging a hole in the roadmap with a cool technical solution, but it's also putting yourself in the context of how does the business make decisions, right? There's a soft side of who are the people who influence these decision makers, and how do you work through them, right?
Yeah.
And there's also the aspect of from your vantage point, it may look like a great idea, but when you put it in the context of how business decisions are made, it could be how NPV is calculated, right? What is the opportunity cost of doing what you're asking people to do? You get a different perspective, right? So just putting yourself in a place where I may be a technologist, but between me and the people who I rely on and I partner with, do we have that 360 viewpoint on what it takes to win build a product and you put it on the roadmap? I think those are the things that we should focus on.
Okay.
So the question, I think it's absolutely for real. It's still, we have a long way to go. For us, we are for Inmobi's Mountain View is Bangalore. This is headquarters where we build out stuff, and our satellite offices, which are engineering teams, they are based in San Francisco. So they are the ones who we call remote,
Yeah.
and we are the ones who are global headquarters.
Yeah.
We are proud of that. And they are the ones who struggle to have late night phone calls with our headquarters, and it's fun. So a lot of people actually who are part of the remote offices for Google, Amazon, Yahoo in Bangalore,
Yeah.
they love to join us because we are headquarters now. So I think it's real, and it's simple, single products that we are building out here that are used across 100 countries, whether it's Hong Kong to Helsinki or Bangalore to, I would say China, Chengdu, California, all over the world. And the same line of code, same piece of SDK, it's all of that getting built out of here. So it's real. There's a long way to go to, of course, do a much better job. We're all trying hard to differentiate against the big guys out there. But I think the key thing to note is talent available? Answer is yes. It's the same people out there, our batchmates from our own colleges who have gone out there, and then they're doing this stuff out there. So talent is the same. Is investment, the capital available? Far more, because people are seeing success stories. Is access to information available? I think the answer is yes. It's all available out there, and it's easy to sort of figure out these customer pain points a lot more. I think it's all about, to me, it all boils down to a sense of belief. I said it in the previous session also. Belief that we can actually do it. And once you start doing it and showing it, and a bunch of us start doing it successfully, I'm sure there'll be more and more such product stories coming out of India. So that's my take.
Great. Thanks, Piyush.
Thank you. I love that story, the belief part of it. From my perspective, it's slightly different. It's think of an atmosphere of where you're pretty much, most of the decision makers are Caucasian white males of 50s, and note all the three, gender and the ethnicity. I'm sorry, I'm bringing up a controversial topic, but that's the sector that we are in, which is the investment banking sector, right? And it's not just on the fintech space of it, but our clients are like that. Our clients' clients are like that. So the whole sector is so, I would say, incestuous that, that the culture is seeping that way. So I think when I hear Piyush or Dhiman speak about it's a matter of belief, it truly is. In our case, just to take an example, okay, answering to your question, I think it's a resounding yes, it's a reality. But coming back to this sector, the reason I'm bringing it up is it's probably one of the most archaic, considering that from a cultural standpoint and the softer skills standpoint, I think if each of us put ourselves as product owners and we want to grow there, I think that's the perspective here. It's important for us to understand how to navigate this culturally and maneuver around. I think the hard skills were amazing to pick up from India. I think Piyush made that point. We can rule the whole world. Where I think we need to do at this stage, and from my perspective, is we need to look at how to really navigate around culturally, especially organizations like this or sectors like this where decision making is still out there. That's number one. Number two is I think we have to almost bulldoze our way through, right? And it starts at individual level and at up the leadership level, that if we have to be taken seriously, we have to take ourselves seriously. It's not about just throwing a bunch of ideas and staying back and saying, okay, let's see whether somebody picks it up. Giving an example, right? It's not just, I was just breaking up the topic, the three words, managing, global and product. All the three are important. When you say managing, is it something which is already out there and you're taking over and you're doing a day-to-day management? Not necessarily. That's something which we've been doing for decades, as somebody said. It truly, now when we talk about managing, I think the view is, can we drive starting from the ideation, conceptualization, execution, take you to the market, and not just India market, outside. I think that's the aspiration, and that's where the reality is also coming in. So that's one part of it. Second, global. Snigdha brought up an amazing point about global versus international. And it's extremely critical, not only understanding the market, but when you talk about global and international, it's an almost expectation that you're building one product which does all, which is not real. I mean, the whole point is starting from the business model of how you would sell the product all the way to how do you conceptualize. The product cannot be one that fits all. I think that's a reality which all of us have to take in. As engineers, we tend to over-engineer, overbuild, over-complicate, over-configure, make it so flexible that it's supposed to handle 150 countries. That's not real. Okay. So I think of global in that sense, apart from the cultural and the software aspects. And when you talk about just the product versus service is a huge thing that's going on, right? I mean, there's a huge move around how do you make services into a product, how do you make product work as services in architecture. So it's a very interesting combination when you are especially on this space where you're a technology vendor for an end customer. So this distinction and how you specialize yourself as a product vendor becomes important. So I was thinking all the three angles for me are what I would call futuristic. They're not nearly aspirational, but we are far, far away from getting there. So that's kind of my view.
Yeah, very good. Thanks a lot. I think that was, I was going to open it up for the audience. So let's have a mic here.
Hello. Yeah, this is question for Piyush. Like, we have a perception of something coming out of a country, say a toy coming from China, we know the quality and stuff. So how do you see somewhere, okay, you're giving a product from India, and what is the perception received globally?
It's a great question.
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on the sector. I think in the realm of mobile, in the realm of internet, I think there's a lot of regard for, I mean, there's no bias, there's no stigma, unlike maybe more traditional sectors where food is difficult to, I mean, China has this whole stigma against food safety because they do something wrong and so on. So I think in, at least in mobile, internet and core technology, it's Indians who are killing it out there in the valley in any case, right? So, and it's Indians who are heading some of the world's largest tech organizations, guys, whether it's Microsoft or Google. So what else do you want in life in terms of any sort of validation that it is possible for us to do great stuff and think big and execute. So at least from our standpoint, I mean, if you are out there building something that is stable, that can deliver, that delivers performance for your clients in your space, it will work. If you are sort of not building something that is not really differentiating and sustaining out there, it will not work. So I think it's pretty simple for us. Maybe in mobile, it's much more competitive out there, definitely, because everyone from Israel or Russia or China or Helsinki is actually building the same stuff. So I think quality is pretty much a function of ROI and delivery for your clients and customers. And as long as you're not, as long as you're sounding professional, it's very important. One other thing I think we've learned is we Indians suck at marketing, right? We're pretty bad at really figuring out what is the best way to articulate and position and do all of that. You go to America and every guy out there somehow seems to be a born CMO. The way the guy will pitch and package, like some small thing will be so large, and here you're struggling to make big things out there which you can't really figure out how to pitch it rightly. I think those are gaps which also bring out the notion of how much better you are as such. So I think those are a few things that we have started evolved and learned and ensured that our design, our positioning, our packaging is at par with some of those companies out there.
Great point. There was another question back there, yeah.
I mean, my question is different, but then based on Piyush, I have one more question.
Okay.
Actually. When you said we Indians bad at marketing, can you take some specific examples, basically from learning perspective?
So I'm saying ability for, I think we have, someone said in the previous, there's a lot of quantity. I'm talking about technology-based products. I'm not saying, I'm not kidding against the levers and the ITC guys in the country. I'm not saying that. Saying for stuff that you've built, in all likelihood, you will have the same freaking features, capabilities that the clients want. It's just that you're not able to really do a great job at product marketing and positioning it as a differentiation for clients out there in New York or Chicago or China. And that ability for you to have a succinct idea of what problem is it solving for the customer. We just love those features and listing down all possible features out there. But what is it doing for the customer? What are the benefits for the customer? How will it help him? How is it easy? How is it different from the other guy? Is something that doesn't come naturally. An ability for us to package that, position that, bring it in a sort of collateral or articulation for our sales teams out there is very important. I mean, we struggled for a few years where we didn't realize how important it is for our sales team in US and Europe and China to really understand the key differentiation. Because the other guys out there, people are.
I think we're still living in the world of product marketing versus product-centric marketing versus customer-centric marketing. So if you see the common thread that we've been talking, it's important when you're selling to somebody, you actually tell them what are the benefits he or she is getting versus talking about my features. Because features are not going to be able to differentiate. And each customer would actually have a different benefit they may derive out of the same product. So I think that itself, if you look at it, everybody in the US actually has an MBA. It's kind of expected that everybody has a basic MBA degree. In India, I think it's still catching up. So
let me ask a question here to the audience. How many of us here in the audience are either at the point where we are making a case to our executive management for having products being completely managed out of India, or already doing it? So how many of us are in that phase? So already doing it and making a case to executive management that we want to do it. So I want to go back to the word that Shalini you used. You said bulldoze. Have the belief and bulldoze. So, and I know that in the last few months you've been globe-trotting all over the world, meeting your executive stakeholders and executive management. So what kind of justification is asked and given for your executive management in the US or somewhere else to start looking at India differently?
Big question. So let me try to answer that briefly. 3 things. First is India is always looked at as your a great execution center. So we need to start at that level. It's forget managing global products. India is not even looked at as somebody who can do product management, for that matter, right? Of an existing product. So we need to start chipping at that level. That's number 1. Number 2 is, I think it comes back to the understanding of the domain and the market and the customer. So unless you prove that even if you have the most amazing idea, it would most likely be approved and sent somewhere else to be done, purely because the understanding is, Indians are great at doing what has been defined, but defining something, do they really understand? So that's the second one, right? I'm again talking from this space because it has a ever-changing, and we've been in this regulatory environment since last 2008. A lot of changes going on, so there's real need for understanding of what's going on in the market. And third thing is, I think pitching to executive management on global, there are a couple of interesting scenarios. One scenario could be where we have products like Piyush's. I think that's a cakewalk. So where you have to manage it from India. Well, let's take the other set of scenarios which are probably more predominant. One is you have multinational firms where either you're a captive and you're part of a captive and you're trying to pitch, or a multinational firm and you are looking to get into Indian market, and that's why you're pitching. So the cases are different, right? So if in the first case where you're still pitching for ideas which is supposed to be sold in the US or in the Canada or in the European markets or even in other markets out of India, it comes back to the fact that, are you able to articulate to those customers? Are you able to understand their problems? Are you able to scale out your business model at the same problems? I think it all comes down to the fundamentals. Product has to be solid, yes. But even before that, I think that's the paradigm which has been changing personally for us and for the team, that we really have to get down to understand what is the customer's problem. The same product that works in the United States, the same product cannot work in the Europe or cannot work in India in the same form. So I think I'm probably repeating this even from my last, but that is where we are continuously talking, because and this is something which I see that even the realization is happening at the HQ level, because typically your headquarters is centered in 1 or 2 places, although they call themselves global organizations starting from all the big guys out there. There is still decision making and somewhat cultural mindset drawn if you're in Europe, either by a European mindset or from the United States. So the whole point is they're also trying to understand how do I scale. So that is why it's a good place for us to be in, because we are known to scale faster and we are known to scale easier. So it's not so much the cost arbitrage or things like that. There is a belief that we've invested so much muscle in India arm, so this is the time for us to scale up. So those are 3 or 4 flavors.
Yeah, just the main question which I had.
Yeah.
So typically when we go for a global product, right, how do we bring in the cultural aspect? For example, let's say you have to build a vehicle horn. It may not work in US, but here we may need musical horn, right? Whereas, and you look at the other contrast, right? When we talk about the school mobile apps, which is kind of very popular and kind of picking up. Even if you take at least, let's say 50-60% of the people, they are still comfortable picking up a phone, calling somebody else, and then ask.
So what's the question?
Right? So how do we understand, for a global product, how do we understand this cultural aspect? What works? Say for example, when we are building it from India, what really works for US, what really works for other geography?
And especially given that you are remote from the customer.
Correct. When we are remote from the customer, or even if you take within India, we are so diversified,
Sure.
The way Maharashtra people think, or we think, or somebody else thinks, it's different.
There's no easy answer. I mean, I'll leave
Yeah,
the
no,
panel to talk
probably,
about it.
Yeah, probably
but-
what I'm kind of looking for is not really a concrete answer, but at least some direction.
Right.
Can we do this? Can we think on these lines or something like that?
No, what I would like to add on to that question is, what are you doing how are you enabling your teams to do that?
So I will leave it to the panel to detail. I'll just give a couple of pointers from my side. One is, I think we have to hit the grind, and there is no easy way. The first step has to be understanding the customer, which means we have to be in front of the customer. So if the customer is sitting in Kazakhstan, you have to go to Kazakhstan. Simple. So if this customer is sitting in the remote part of Kerala, you have to go to Kerala.
There
I
is
think
nothing
there
interesting
is-
happening in the office.
Absolutely, product manager is supposed to be on the road. So sorry, but I think that's very important. At least that's something which we are realizing, especially in the initial days, till we have the hang and the stability. That's number one. Number two is the cultural alignment. Again, it goes back to there are certain set of core abilities that you anyway have to build into the product, core capabilities. We cannot get away from that. We have to stabilize that. If you're talking about the next bit, which is where you start talking about which market, I'm sure we're not going to attack 50 plus markets with a single product. I think the strategy will always be that you have a phased manner. So which means it starts from your market analysis, market study, understanding the customer. It has to have those fundamental disciplines, and we are bringing that in every product manager's role. Although it kind of goes into the product marketing type of a responsibility, but we believe that product owners from India have so much tendency to get seeped into the features and capabilities and an engineering mindset. We are trying to push that out right now.
Yeah.
Although we have a separate role for the marketing. So those are a couple of tactical things that we are doing right now.
Yeah. Okay.
So I just want to add a couple of points out here. Fantastic. This is, I think, the role of a product manager, and then, how do you build slightly beyond the product manager capabilities. To your point, I think something that I've seen work out very well is operate from your position of strength, right? So if your core strength is technology, and don't, again, when we're talking global, the way I look at it, it's not important that each and every function resides in India. So I should be able to actually liaise or lead even marketing or pricing guys in the US, right? That probably is going to be an evolution. So what I would actually do is, once I've built, or let's say I have a strong credibility on execution and technology and innovation, it could be on the current product, I would actually talk to the sales guys and figure out what would help him, if he gets in the product, right? I would check with service guys and say, when a call comes in, what kind of information I can make available to you that will help you please the client, right? Make it a delightful experience. So you start with a small, not on your goals, but winning those brownie points, right? So you go beyond, start talking, make connections, build a strong ecosystem, and then coming back to your bulldozing, right? I mean, typically what I have done in my journey is build a very, very strong connection with all the SVPs of technology with a very strong, credible background. And then if the product head over there has no choice, because there's so many people, it's not just me fighting the battle alone, right? I have very senior executives and maybe their boss, actually, the head of product and technology in US, actually telling them, that you have to let India do it because they've proven that they have done it very well. So I think building that ecosystem externally, I think Piyush or somebody, you talked about it, right? I mean, connecting, Demon talked about leveraging McAfee. So building your external ecosystem to learn, contribute, and obviously gain insights. Building your internal ecosystem, they are very, very important because they are going to be your sponsors for when you need to either influence or bulldoze, whichever works.
The one thing I'll add is, it obviously depends on the type of product, right? If you're building a phone and you say, should I have an FM radio head? That's very specific to how a phone gets used in India. But oftentimes it's not so specific, right? I mean, the fundamental problem that you're trying to solve is a couple of layers below, right? And one thing that comes to mind is we've heard about things like reverse innovation or frugal innovation, right? I mean, it may be the case that you're doing it in India, and GE is a pioneer of this, and I see a lot of that happening. Intel has taken a step or two there as well, right? You are actually solving a more fundamental problem. You may be disrupting the cost of the solution, and that may be because people value a product differently in India, but when you solve a fundamental cost barrier, as an example, you can reverse innovate it, and you can actually sell it globally, right? So that's definitely something to keep in mind.
So as the session manager, I'm going to apply what I learned and bulldoze the esteemed panelists. One last question, and then we call it done.
Hi, I'm Salar. So the question is, there is a lot of restriction in terms of consumer data in the West, right? So why is it so that we don't have a Indian-built consumer-facing? When I say consumer-facing, average Americans using the product of sorts. So there's a lot of white label things that happen from India, but what do you think stops us from building core consumer-facing products? So, someone?
Was a question that there's no India-built consumer-facing product being used by the US?
I mean, there are there, but we don't have someone like an Apple or the kind of a scale where consumers link that product to the country like India. So.
Yeah. I think just doing it for B2B alone has been so challenging, purely because we still don't understand the value of being out there in front of the customer. I think for the question, gentleman who asked a question, if you're not out there sitting in China, sitting in Japan, sitting in San Francisco, breathing the air that the guy is breathing, and going through the food that he's eating, and understanding what his challenges are, it will never happen. So B2B itself is a challenge. In the consumer space, is much more difficult. And one big thing which I think we don't maybe get so well yet is the importance of design. And for any such products in the US, there's a lot of focus on design and then understanding if it's a hardware or a solid sort of product, including an app per se. And I think for B2B, if it's so difficult, ability for us to understand the consumer psyche for Americans, for your product is very, very important. Like sitting out of here a year back, who would have imagined that there's an important big thing like Snapchat? I mean, we're all on WhatsApp and enjoying WhatsApp, and there comes a startup which is about images disappearing in like 5 seconds. Who cares for it? Sitting here, would you imagine that? No. But that's like a $10 billion valuation company. Almost 50 million consumers, millennials in the US use it. No one uses any of these classical messaging environments that we all use. Some of us would have heard of Yo. I mean, who the cares about Yo sitting out of here? We don't have like electricity. But out there, Yo did start. Whisper and Secret as stupid apps that are, so it's just a different level of order of consumer behavior and psyche, and back to my Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We are sitting in the food, safety, physiological order of needs out here of basic internet connectivity. There, people have to figure out, how do I understand what is a gossip in my society? I mean, that's why Secret and Whisper were born.
Very first world problems.
Yeah, it's beyond first world. It's beyond first world in terms of what is happening out there. So it is so important for you to be ingrained in the society And if you're not doing, I mean, I'm sure there'll be successful products coming out soon enough, because there's this whole Indian hotline between India and SF somewhere, and Modi is helping. So I'm sure this will happen. But yeah, that's, I think, design and consumer context is very critical. Not yet something we understand and appreciate.
So I hope you guys were taking notes, because I've got about 4 takeaways that I've captured from our speakers here. One is, identifying the wins that we can help build our credibility with our executive stakeholders and management. I like the bulldoze part of it. Believing in ourselves, right, and that we can do this. And then I think you also talked about the holistic end-to-end understanding, really understanding the go-to-market and the sales motion, and how do we sell and how do our customers expect to be sold, right, part of it. And then, Dhimant brought up a very good point about, when you have the opportunity, you got to seize it, right? And then you don't need anybody's permission to do that, right? So, great, thanks a lot. Let's give a huge applause for our speakers. Thank you very much.
Thanks. We would like to felicitate the panelists.
Starting with
All right, thanks a lot, Shalini. Yep, thanks for coming. Thanks a lot. I think we have more energy to clap, right? Dhimant, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
a couple of,
Thanks, guys.
and we like to also vote for the best question. So there were 3 questions, and we believe with the Make in India context, the first question that raised whether products from India can truly sell globally, we would like to award that. So I request the moderator to please.
Who asked that question?
The gentleman here. Please. And one logistic announcement, there is a specific number. You could give a call and rate the session that you just attended. Thank you so much. And of course for our beloved moderator.